Believe it or not, a staggering 70% of people are unhappy with their lives and yearning for change. Quite a shocking statistic, isn't it? Imagine nearly 3 out of 4 individuals around you are potentially dissatisfied with the course of their existence. This unsettling reality pervades our society, subtly influencing our lives and decisions. Consider the tale of John, a successful businessman in his 40s. He had everything society told him he should want: wealth, status, a beautiful family. Yet he found himself waking up with a sense of dread every morning, a gnawing emptiness in an otherwise full life. One day he realized that his unhappiness stemmed not from the lack of anything material, but from the lack of fulfillment and purpose. This realization was his first step towards change. One must wonder, what is the root cause of this widespread unhappiness? The first thing to eliminate from your life is negativity. Now consider the tale of Thomas, a man who once found himself ensnared in the thorny brambles of a negative mindset. His thoughts, like a broken record, would replay the same pessimistic tunes, casting a gloomy shadow over his life. This mental maelstrom affected his relationships, his work, and his overall well-being. However, Thomas decided he'd had enough. He began by acknowledging his negativity, understanding its roots, and then, with unwavering determination, he started to rewire his thoughts. He replaced every negative thought with a positive one, turning "I can't" into "I can," "I won't" into "I will." Thomas discovered that by changing his perspective, he changed his world. His journey wasn't easy, nor was it swift, but it was transformational. Thomas found that his life brightened as he fostered positivity, and his relationships and work flourished. As you can see, positivity is an essential ingredient for happiness. The second thing to eliminate is materialism. Let's delve into the tale of a wealthy individual who, despite a life adorned with luxury, felt a profound sense of emptiness. They had everything one could dream of: a mansion, the latest gadgets, a fleet of high-end cars, yet a perpetual cloud of dissatisfaction loomed. The riches that were supposed to bring joy only fostered a hunger for more. Their life was a constant, exhausting race in pursuit of the next best thing. But a pivotal realization dawned upon them. They were not unhappy because they lacked anything, but because they desired everything. In a bold move, they started eliminating materialism from their life. They exchanged the thrill of acquisitions for the joy of experiences, the satisfaction of ownership for the peace of minimalism. And so they found happiness not in their possessions, but within themselves. Happiness is found within, not in material possessions. The third thing to eliminate is unnecessary commitments. Picture this: a man named Edward, a busy bee, always agreeing to engagements, tasks, projects without a second thought. His calendar was a kaleidoscope of overlapping events, meetings, and deadlines. The stress of juggling all these commitments started to weigh on him, like a heavy cloak draped over his shoulders. His life felt like a never-ending treadmill run, where he was constantly chasing the elusive satisfaction of fulfillment. But one day Edward decided to make a change. He started to evaluate each commitment, each obligation, and started asking himself, is this truly necessary? By stripping away the commitments that didn't add value to his life, he found relief. His calendar started to clear, his stress levels lowered, and most importantly, he found time for himself. The story of Edward is a reminder to us all. Time is not a renewable resource. Time is precious. Use it wisely. The fourth thing to eliminate is toxic relationships. Imagine, if you will, the tale of a person ensnared in the thorny tendrils of a damaging bond. This relationship, once a source of joy, had become a cauldron of unending strife, sapping their happiness and leaving them perpetually weary. Yet they clung to it, hoping for change, for a return to the old harmonious days. The strain of this toxic relationship did not merely affect their emotional well-being, but seeped into every aspect of their life. It dimmed their sparkle, muffled their laughter, and cloaked their days in a shroud of gloom. But then, a moment of revelation struck. They realized that they had the power to change their circumstances. They chose to eliminate the toxicity from their life, and what followed was a profound peace, a tranquility they had long forgotten. Remember, the relationships you keep should lift you higher, not pull you under. Surround yourself with positivity. The fifth thing to eliminate is excessive social media. Picture this: a bright young woman named Jane, brimming with potential, yet tethered to her smartphone. She was a social media addict, scrolling through endless feeds, consuming vacuous content, neglecting the world around her. Her productivity plummeted, relationships strained, and joy became a rare commodity. Jane was ensnared in the digital web, a prisoner of the very platforms meant to connect us. But she realized that she was not living, she was merely existing. So Jane decided to limit her social media use. She set strict boundaries, designated specific times for digital engagement, and began to rediscover the world around her. Slowly but surely, Jane regained control over her life. She rekindled forgotten hobbies, strengthened relationships, and found joy in the simplest of things. In essence, she began to live again, proving that real life is happening off the screen. The sixth thing to eliminate is the fear of change. Meet Thomas, a diligent worker and a loyal friend. Yet he was shackled by his fear of change. For years, he stayed in a job he didn't love, surrounded by people he didn't resonate with, simply because he was terrified of the unknown. The fear of change held him back like an anchor, keeping his life stagnant and monotonous. However, one day he came across a quote by Heraclitus, a pre-Socratic Greek philosopher, who said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man." This thought struck a chord with Thomas. He realized that change, however daunting, is the essence of life. Thomas decided to embrace this transformation, and it was this acceptance of change that unshackled him. He found a new job, made new friends, and discovered a version of himself he never knew existed. And so we learn from Thomas's story that change is the only constant in life. The seventh thing to eliminate is dwelling on past mistakes. Consider the tale of John, a man who once lived in the shadow of his past. John's life was riddled with regret, a constant replay of scenes where he wished he'd acted differently. This regret was a poison seeping into every corner of his life, tainting his happiness. John was stuck in a loop, a prisoner of his own guilt and remorse, but then he discovered the strength within himself to break free. He realized his past mistakes were not chains binding him, but lessons shaping him. He started to view his past not as a haunting ghost, but as a teacher. Each mistake became a stepping stone towards wisdom. He learned to forgive himself, to accept his past, and to use it as a guide for his future. Embracing this perspective, John found liberation. His regret was replaced with acceptance, his guilt with growth. The past is a place of reference, not residence. The eighth thing to eliminate is the weight of others' expectations. Picture this: a talented artist born into a family of doctors. His entire life, he's been molded into a medical professional. His own dreams of creating art stifled by the expectations of his family. Every stroke of his brush, every splash of color suppressed by the stark white of a lab coat. But then, something changes. The artist decides to break free from these chains of expectations. He starts setting his own goals, crafting his own path towards happiness. He begins to paint again, not with a sense of rebellion, but with a sense of freedom. The transformation is astounding. No longer constrained by the expectations of others, he finds joy in every canvas, peace in every stroke. By setting his own expectations, he redefines his own happiness. Remember, we are the authors of our own life story. Happiness is personal. Don't let others define it for you. The ninth thing to eliminate is the guilt of saying no. Consider the tale of a man named Oliver. A kind soul, Oliver was perpetually at everyone's beck and call. Colleagues, friends, even distant relatives knew they could count on Oliver for any favor, any time. But this constant compliance came at a steep price. Oliver's happiness was slowly dwindling, his personal goals pushed aside, replaced by a relentless whirlwind of commitments. Then Oliver made a discovery. He stumbled upon the power of no. It wasn't easy at first. Each no was accompanied by a pang of guilt. But with time, he realized that saying no didn't make him selfish, it made him self-aware. It wasn't about rejecting others, but about prioritizing himself. He found balance, and with it, his happiness returned. So let's learn from Oliver. Remember, it's not your duty to meet every demand or expectation. Sometimes you have to say no. It's okay to prioritize yourself. The 10th thing to eliminate is overthinking. Imagine a person named Alex, a brilliant mind, always thinking, planning, and strategizing. Yet this gift was also a curse. Alex was ensnared in a cycle of overthinking, constantly ruminating over past mistakes, potential future problems, and endless what-ifs. It was like being trapped in a labyrinth of thoughts where happiness was always just out of reach. But then, Alex discovered a way out. They learned the art of controlling their thoughts, of quieting the mind when it started to spiral. They embraced the principles of Stoicism, learning to distinguish between what they could control and what they couldn't. The past was unchangeable, the future uncertain, but the present was theirs to command. Over time, Alex's overthinking diminished. They found peace not in the absence of thoughts, but in the mastery of them. Alex's story is a reminder of the power we hold over our minds. Overthinking kills happiness. The 11th and final thing to eliminate is the pursuit of perfection. Let's ponder on this tale of a renowned violinist, a virtuoso who was perpetually unsatisfied. With every stroke of his bow, he sought flawlessness, a note-for-note precision that was elusive. He'd lose himself in practice, his happiness fading into the shadows of his perfectionism. It was a relentless chase, an exhausting marathon with no finish line. The turning point came when he encountered a Stoic philosopher's writings, a passage that read, "Perfection is the enemy of progress." It struck a chord within him. He realized that his pursuit of perfection, instead of enhancing his art, was stunting its growth. By accepting the beauty in imperfection, he found a new rhythm, a refreshing melody. His music took on a new life, imbued with his own unique imperfections. His happiness returned, not from achieving perfection, but from accepting his imperfections. Perfection is an illusion. Acceptance is the key to happiness.